right, we have a friend of the podcast joining us for what was breaking news yesterday. Meghann Cuniff is back. She's a legal affairs journalist reporting from courtrooms in Los Angeles and Orange County. We had you here, Meghann, covering all things Tory Lanez, Megan Thee Stallion, that trial, and you've been doing so much more before and after that. You can find her work at Legal Affairs and Trials with Meghann Cuniff. She's got a YouTube channel at Meghann Cuniff. You have merch available as well.
Oh, wow.
I did not know that. I have to check that out. But obviously, you come in having written for the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, New York Times, Law and Crime, and many other publications. We're happy to have you here today to break down this breaking news that came out yesterday that Jay-Z has been added to an amended complaint for a lawsuit that was already filed against Diddy. This is a civil lawsuit filed in New York. And we want to understand what's happening here because we know that this had been filed back in, was it October? September?
Yes, October 20th.
Okay, so first question for me. This was filed back in October. Originally in that suit, we saw that there was, obviously Diddy was the target, but they named Celebrity A and Celebrity B. They did not say who those people were. We knew one was a man and one was a woman. Why did they not? I want to know the strategy here. Why do you think that they did not originally name Jay-Z as Celebrity A, I believe it is, that was the male in this lawsuit, and decided to do it 2 months later, yesterday?
Well, I mean, it seems like there could be a lot of reasons for that, but it all kind of goes to negotiations. I mean, it sounds like from Jay-Z's standpoint, they had contacted his lawyer, and talked about these allegations and tried to get some kind of mediation going. So they might have thought, the lawyers for the plaintiff thought that this gave them some leverage going forward into negotiations with Jay-Z if they had this lawsuit already filed, but he's not named. However, it would make it so easy for them to just name him like that. I mean, it's hard to get inside the strategy room of the plaintiff lawyers here and what exactly they're doing here. But according to just the facts that are on the record, Tony Buzbee has said that he requested a mediation over this. So there definitely was negotiations or some attempts at negotiations going on before this was filed. So this all had to have been some kind of leverage or something to help in the negotiations here.
So they wanted to get Jay-Z, Roc Nation, whoever to pay up. And so what they attempted to do was to file this, not name him, go into mediation, hope that he would pay. They obviously didn't. And then they decided to go ahead and name him.
Yes. And Tony Buzbee, the attorney on this, has said that they did not request money from Jay-Z, that they requested a mediation. But I think Jay-Z's side would say that really the only thing that you're seeking in a lawsuit like this is money. There's that's the remedy in civil cases outside of an injunction or something like that. But that's not being pursued here. So just the inherent point of the lawsuit seemed to be about money. But there is a dispute between his camp and Tony Buzbee about what exactly was requested and what they wanted to do here.
In a mediation, what else, two lawyers here, what else could it be? If Tony Buzbee is saying, hey, money's not the thing, what else could they be seeking in the mediation besides money?
Well, it sounds like he didn't say money isn't the thing. He just said that
there was no shakedown.
There was no request with the mediation to ask for money. Is that right? He just asked for a mediation, which they didn't grant. But it's a civil suit. You know, you're asking for money.
Right.
You're asking for money. I mean, to file it in federal court, you have to say that there's at least $75,000 or more that you're seeking in the case to establish diversity, in addition to the citizens being in separate states.
Yes.
Okay. So there's an extortion suit that is attached to this that was filed back in November, which I feel like flew under the radar. I didn't know anything about it. Did you?
Didn't.
It was from an anonymous person. And I'm curious with you, like, because my first thought was, did Meghann know this was coming? Because you seem to be in the know. You're right there when this kind of thing is happening. Can you tell us Do you think that you knew, or did you know that this was coming? And can you tell us a little bit more about this extortion suit that now we know it was Jay-Z behind it? Is it still going on, and kind of where we are with that?
I can't say I knew it was coming. I can say I suspected it was coming, but it was really just speculation on my part after seeing this extortion lawsuit filed. And, there's so much going on with all the other cases. And then Tony Buzbee has so many lawsuits against Sean Combs that it's hard to keep track of everything. But I'd actually seen, I think somebody messaged me on Twitter and asked, hey, can you follow this lawsuit? And that was how I learned of it. And when I did some Googling, I saw the statement from Quinn Emanuel, which is the law firm that filed it. And just knowing that they've done a lot of work with Jay-Z and Rock Nation, and then just knowing Jay-Z's proximity to Diddy, you're always seeing stuff online about how, people just wildly speculating that he's next. So I remember thinking to myself, I bet this is Jay-Z. But like I said, I can't say I knew it was Jay-Z because this was just pure speculation on my part. But when I looked at it, I said, this really looks like it could be him. And then it turns out it is.
Let's talk about the allegations themselves. Why don't you just lay out for the audience a little bit of what this particular lawsuit says? I'm sure people have read the more salacious details, but going into it, what does this lawsuit say about Diddy, about Jay-Z, about Diddy and Jay-Z? What is it alleging?
This alleges that this girl was 13 when she went to an after party for the Video Music Awards back in 2000 and encountered both Jay-Z and Diddy in a room and was attacked. It's a little it seems like the allegations are that this is statutory rape because she was so underage. It really lays out a pretty horrifying situation that she says was witnessed by the anonymous celebrity, the celebrity who is still anonymous in the third complaint.
Mm.
We don't know who Celebrity B is other than it's alleged that it's a woman. Do you think we will see a similar amendment in the future? Like, based on your experience in dealing with these type of cases, do you think that we will see that? Or maybe there has been another anonymous suit out there that we don't know of that's also accusing Tony Buzbee and his firm of extortion?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about another suit, and you'd imagine there would be some publicity surrounding that, but I think this unnamed celebrity would be a prime witness either for or against. I mean, it seems like the plaintiff would either want her as a witness, or if Jay-Z says none of this is true, perhaps she'd be a better witness for him. I think it's inevitable that eventually her identity is going to come out. When that actually happens is a little unclear. Because one thing to remember here is that the idea that this case is ever going to get very far in litigation is far-fetched just because of the fact that one of the lead defendants, Diddy, is facing a criminal case. So it will be really easy for Diddy's lawyers to intervene here and say this entire case needs to be stayed. He's not sitting for any deposition and we're not doing any discovery while he has a criminal case pending, and it would be automatically stayed because of that. Maybe not necessarily against Jay-Z, but the idea that Diddy is actually going to be resolving any of these civil suits while his criminal case is going, no way.
Well, let's talk about the Jay-Z aspect of it, because the Diddy thing is probably very far gone. He's got so many cases. His reputation is set in stone. This essentially is going to be, from the Jay-Z Rock Nation camp, in my estimation, a battle for his reputation. He's not going to care about anything else but how he's viewed and the gigantic cultural ramifications of his name being attached to anything like this. How do you think they play it? We know that there has been a suit. We know that there was a lengthy post on Rock Nation's Twitter page, and maybe on their Instagram too, on their social media, in which Jay-Z, from what we understand, written by Jay-Z, lays out the fact that this is all untrue, that this is a shakedown, that he is ready to fight it. And now we also know that Jay-Z is seeking to have the identity of the plaintiff in this particular case unsealed. They want the anonymity gone. He is going to fight tooth and nail. How do you see this playing out for Tony Buzbee, for Jay-Z, because it's essentially Puff is cooling his heels. It's essentially a battle between those two now.
Yes, exactly. And I saw someone saying in a situation like Jay-Z is in right now, there's basically two options. You either quietly settle or you fight tooth and nail. There's no just fighting a little bit. You have to be very, very aggressive. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I think it's a question of, is the attention eventually going to turn from Tony Buzbee to the allegations themselves? And I think we've seen examples of how these cases have played out in the Kevin Spacey lawsuit that actually went to trial in the same court where this case was filed, where you really have to look at what exactly is the plaintiff saying happened, and then do you have corroborating evidence for that? Is there some kind of other witnesses or something that they can bring in? It seems like eventually for Jay-Z's camp, they're going to need to turn the attention away from Tony Buzbee and onto the plaintiff and the actual allegations, which I think is what they're trying to do by identifying the plaintiff. Because right now they're saying we don't even know who this is.
Yeah, it's, Jay-Z put a Rock Nation on their social media, put out a statement that is from Jay-Z. And there's some things that he says in there, and he really goes on the attack of Tony Buzbee. We've heard his name in more recent years as an attorney in a few high-profile cases. What can you tell us about Tony Buzbee as an attorney?
He's well known in Texas. Had a failed attempt for the mayor of Houston. Ran for that pretty recently. It was interesting because he's a plaintiff lawyer by reputation and practice, but he also does other cases. And he was out here in Los Angeles last year for a really high profile case of a wealthy woman who had actually was speeding in her SUV and hit two young brothers and killed them. And it was a really controversial case within the neighborhood. And she was, all sorts of inherited wealth in that family. She was kind of promoted as the heir of some Grossman Burn Center. But I think she and her husband are a prime example of people who have just inherited everything that they have. And they had so much money that they were able to get, hire lawyers. But this case was pretty shut and dry. And the idea that she wouldn't be convicted of this. But for some reason, she had Tony Buzbee come out from Houston and be her lawyer in this LA County Superior Court case. When if you just look at Tony Buzbee on paper, based on his practice as a personal injury attorney, you'd think he would be representing like the parents of the kids who died in some kind of lawsuit against the driver. But he's doing a criminal defense case for Rebecca Grossman, who was the driver. So I just thought that was kind of odd. But it was always unclear how exactly he met Rebecca Grossman and got connected with her. But he does a lot of different cases, it seems like.
He certainly now, even more so than anything else, will be examined to the nth degree. Like every single thing. I don't think that Tony Buzbee, we'll talk a little bit more about this. I don't think that Tony Buzbee knows like kind of what he's gotten himself into. Is he the standard bearer of justice that he was made out to be during the Deshaun Watson stuff? Because Deshaun Watson had so many different allegations and so many different women that came out and said that he had been inappropriate with him. And Tony Buzbee at that point was seen as the lawyer who had, got all of these women together and made sure that whatever one of them said about Deshaun Watson was corroborated and that there was a pattern of behavior and that stuck with Deshaun. Since then, his reputation has seemed to veer more off to this guy is looking for a headline. He is, I've even heard the term ambulance chaser, all of that stuff. What is your read on him as an attorney?
It kind of exemplifies that, there's sometimes not one cookie cutter answer to how an attorney is. And especially for an attorney who works the kind of cases that Tony Buzbee does, it's pretty hard to not have good cases. He might have great causes and have had good cases over the years. We've seen that with a lot of different attorneys, that just by the nature of their work, they're bound to get some righteous causes. If not every single one of them has problems with it. But I think it just kind of exemplifies how complicated sometimes a lawyer's reputation is, and how there's a lot of nuances to their work that we all need to look at.
Last question for me, and this is kind of piggybacking on some of the accusations that are being made against Tony Buzbee as the attorney, or his strategy for how he's navigating this case. One of the things that the Roc Nation statement says is, if you were so concerned, I'm paraphrasing here, about the victims, why would you not seek justice in a criminal manner? Can you explain to our audience, this is a federal lawsuit, civil. Can you explain why he can't or didn't file under New York State law or for a criminal case and federally?
I'm not, I think there has to be something with the statute of limitations. I'm not completely clear on all the exact in and outs, so I wouldn't want to say something incorrect. But given that the alleged incident happened in 2000, I think there's definitely some problems with the statute of limitations that they would be running into if they filed a police report or pursued anything like that. But we don't know. That could still be to come.
Last thing for me. I read the lawsuit. Particularly, I love reading the lawsuits because so much of the lawsuit is just describing who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to everything they've ever done. This guy won 3 Grammys. He's got this. He's got that. He's got this. He's got that. It's like, that's all the stuff. We know all of that. But maybe the people in the court don't. Then I get to the point that like directly deals with this young lady who says that she had tried to get into the VMAs. She couldn't get into the VMAs. Then she wanted to go to an after party. She goes to the after party. Famous people everywhere. This happens to her. How do you prove something like this? What everyone wants is going to want to know more than anything is Jay-Z capable of something like this?
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody is going to want to know, right?
Right.
Is there anything, in your opinion, that before this goes to a lawsuit, before this comes to actually filing something, what do lawyers do? Do they do any type of investigation? Do they have people look at stuff? Are there any pictures or photos? Or is it simply a woman, a young lady, comes to Tony's Buzbee and says this happens, and then he goes and files paperwork? Is there any type of investigation that goes on beforehand? Is there anything that makes this accusation credible beyond the word of the woman that is making the allegation?
It really just depends on the lawyer and the law firm. But Tony Buzbee has said that they've done due diligence and investigations into all their clients, and that they've filed this based on that. And one thing he has in the complaint is some photographs that he says are actually from that night, that are of containers that he says GHB was placed into a drink. So he has those photos, but I don't know. There's a lot of questions there. But he does have the photographs. And then the big issue will be: is there any other corroborating evidence for the plaintiff's testimony? Because her testimony would be the biggest evidence. But is there anything else that corroborates that? It's like what we saw in the Kevin Spacey lawsuit. Is there something else that can verify this? And I think that remains to be seen.
And it might hinge on whoever the unnamed celebrity that was in the room was.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's huge.
Well, if it goes to trial, they have to try to subpoena that person to come in.
Certainly. Yeah.
Or, if it doesn't, depose her. Have to.
Yeah, it seems like definitely they're going to have to get, some kind of deposition or something. But I think we're in for a lot more to come, for sure.
When you say a lot more to come, do you think for this trial, do you see that there will be more Tony Buzbee? I mean, obviously, and this is the last question for me, obviously, Jay-Z's side of this is going to directly target Tony Buzbee and try to expose him as a charlatan. Do you think that Tony Buzbee will have potentially more cases and more plaintiffs against Jay-Z?
I'm not sure about Jay-Z. I think we're definitely in for more lawsuits against Sean Combs, Diddy. But whether we'll see more lawsuits against Jay-Z, I mean, one thing that sometimes happens is one lawsuit will kind of open a floodgate of accusers. So we can see whether that plays out. But I think it just remains to be seen.
Meghann, thank you so much for joining us on Higher Learning. Tell everybody where they can follow all your work and everything that you are reporting on.
Yes, legalaffairsandtrials.com is the Substack. And then I'm on YouTube too, Meghann Cuniff. And then also Blue Sky. Blue Sky has really taken off. So look me up at Meghann Cuniff, Meghann. But legalaffairsandtrials.com is the hub.
Thank you so much, Meghann.
I love your merch. I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I got to do some holiday specials, Christmas deals, and Hanukkah deals.
That's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Meghann.
Thank you.